Hello everyone and welcome. Today I will continue with the Shadows over Camelot series and specifically the Picts. And begin by painting the shield with um, burnt sienna. One of the new things that I have learned is that white is not an especially very good color for a primer because white will have a tendency to pop out, especially where you can't get the new paint to reach. And so going forward, I will actually be priming all of my miniatures with black. For the skin tone, I chose Flayed One Flesh this time. No errors. I wanted to make them stand out against the Saxons. They needed to have a bit of a different skin tone because they're two different peoples. Back to the primer issue. The main worry I had was that my paints could not cover black as well. And this was because I have a lot of layer paints or those tube acrylics. But I found that they work really, really well even on black. And if not, I can just paint over with a different base color that is a bit lighter. Also, I want to try and switch to much more diluted paints or layer paints because I want to try and see how I can actually use a zenithal highlight. My initial miniatures actually, the first miniatures I painted actually had this zenithal highlight, but unfortunately, I did not see any difference when painting it. It might have been due to the paints or other issues, but I really think I got it now with thinning down your paints and making them as translucent as possible in order to emphasize the zenithal highlight. As you can tell, I had to do two coats of the flayed one flesh. One of the reason was that it was indeed a layer paint. The other was the fact that it didn't really cover and that I thinned down the layer paint as well. So I'm guessing that with a very good zenithal highlight, this will actually help with the recesses and make different shades of the flesh actually stand out, and it will reduce the amount of shading that I have to do. For the boots, I went with a new acquisition in my palette range, one that I have been putting off purchasing, but it was high time. I finally actually have a of Rhinox hide. I really think that this color will replace burnt umber for me when I paint leather going forward. For his outfit, I wanted to make him. I was thinking maybe I can make him, wear a kilt with flat stripes and it would look awesome. But then I realized, hey, that's really hard for me to draw right now, and it has a lot of creases, and it's going to be incredibly difficult. So in the end, I went with another new acquisition, and especially because I wanted to see how the paints worked. This is actually Warp Boss Green from Citadel, And the reason I wanted to see how this works is because I'm thinking of painting my newly assembled Tau armies with this as a base coat. Also, later on, I will be using a darker green to recess shade this. But again, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So yeah, this is a really good color. I love it. Green is one of my favorite colors, and this one especially. It's really great. The coverage, uh, the flow rate, it's perfect. It's really good. Can't wait to actually put it on some towel. For the sash around his waist, I went with a complementary color to green, and that would be red. And since he's a warrior, what could be better than corn red? So yes, I went with corn red all over the sash, going all the way around. And in contrast, the green, wow, it really, really stands out. I'm starting to understand color theory right about now. It might not look like it, but even this footage right now, it's actually sped up to double time. But I'm moving so slowly because these are very fine details and I don't want to have to fix spilling over his garments. So as I am watching this edit, it's downright interesting how slow I can go that even at double speed, this is actually seems like a normal, realistic movement of the brush. I mean, how slow was I really going back there? For the fur trim around his boots, I went with raw sienna. I keep going back to these shades of brown. It's not that I lack imagination or anything, it's just that I try to focus a bit more on realism than I see other painters do it. I know they're not very bright colors, I know they're not very fun colors, but I honestly don't think he would have, spent time to have his boots painted pink. Just saying. his sash over the middle actually has a leather belt, which I painted using the same rhinox hide. The deep brown over the red really stands out, and it's a nice little detail that just pops. As I'm painting, I have these spur of the moment ideas, which then I forget to either film or actually paint. So, for example, you can clearly see that he has a belt buckle, which I plan to do a metallic silver, probably, but which, of course, I absolutely completely forgot to paint and or fill. So, since at this very moment I have not yet done the final shots, I would probably take a few minutes to go back and change that and paint his all of their belt buckles because there's four of them. And as I mentioned, I took a bit of really dark green that I had from my tube acrylics and thinned it down really well. It was almost as if just, shaded water. This literally created a green wash, which I used all over his textile garment, all over the green part, which really made the color go into each and every recess, making it darker while still retaining the greenish color of the um, Warboss green. For the final step on the shield, of course, we need to paint the band. And for that, I used lead belcher. And I was incredibly careful not to spill outside the lines. And of course, I did. Way more than I wanted to. And then I had to come back with, of course, with burnt sienna and redo all my mistakes. The biggest difficulty was doing the little tiny little bulbs inside of the rings. I might not have caught that on camera, but it was a real pain to actually do those as the paint would often spill outside the intended areas, so to speak. I honestly don't know if there's an easier way to actually paint these details, but so far it has eluded me. And other than paying very close attention to what you're doing, I don't think there's a different trick to it. So yeah, hopefully this gets a lot more easier with a lot more experience. But yeah, you will often see me make a lot of mistakes in my videos. I cannot stress this enough that I am learning as I go. One of the things that recently was explained to me is that I use too much paint and I let the paint go way too far uh, up the bristles of the brush, and that actually will damage it in time, and the hairs will not form a fine point going forward. This is why I learned this stuff, and this is what I want my channel to be. Basically, you can actually see a person learning as they go, and this is what I like to see, and not somebody who already knows everything and just tells me, hey, let's go through the entire process. What if I didn't have any teachers? How would I learn? Well, this is how. By doing. Apparently, I did not forget the film actually painting all those tiny little details. And for this, I actually brought out my smallest brush, my smallest detail brush. Barely any paint on it, and this is one of the ones that I really do take very good care of, especially because you really have to. But I don't think it has more than a few dozen hairs put together. Using the same very small detail brush, I painted the necklace using Runefang steel in order to simulate silver. For the gemstone at the heart of the necklace, I just painted it with a tiny dot of corn red to match his sash. The blade also got a coat of lead belcher. That was a quick and easy step on both sides. Easy peasy. Not much else to do. I plan to edge highlight it with a bit of Rungfang steel, but I decided against it in the end. It still was just a quick tabletop model, especially for an enemies. I will take better care for the knights. The next step was shading, so I covered almost the entire model in Agrax Earthshade, starting with the shield and then covering all of his skin. And let's not forget, all the cloth was already shaded using that green wash. I wanted all these picked warriors to be redheads, and for this I used a mixture of I believe corn red and a bit of Everland Sunset or raw sienna. This I wanted to use as a base coat and then have a few streaks or highlights of just Everland Sunset. I used the same color for their beards as well, and I tried to get it as realistic as possible. Uh, Fortunately, I don't think I've filmed the bit of highlighting or the Everland sunset, as well as I may have missed the part where I painted a tattoo for one of them. Let me know how it looks in the final shots. Which one do you think is better, the non-tattoo or the tattooed one? I'm not 100% happy with how the tattoos came out, but it's also a unique element for one of the miniatures. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, that's it. It's time for the final shots, and if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and share it with a friend.